So picture walking down a crowded city street, right? And you stop to watch a game of three-card Monte.
Oh, yeah. The classic shell game.
Exactly. I mean, the dealer is incredibly fast. The cards are moving in a blur, just flitting over each other, sliding all across this little cardboard table.
Right, and you are absolutely certain you know where the red queen is.
Yes. You place your bet, you flip the card, and you realize, well, you realize you've been looking at a black 2 the entire time.
Because you didn't lose because you weren't paying attention.
No, you lost because the game was designed from the very beginning to redirect your focus.
Yeah.
The real move happened completely out of sight.
The dealer really relies on that illusion of transparency. I mean, you think you are seeing all the moving parts, but you're only seeing the parts they want you to see.
While the actual mechanics of the trick are they're happening right underneath their palms.
Exactly.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking that exact dynamic, that illusion of transparency, and applying it to the labyrinth of local political campaign finance right here in Pennsylvania.
It is a labyrinth, for sure.
It really is. We are looking at how big money tactics, like the kind of aggressive dark money maneuvering you usually only expect to see in brutal national or statewide elections,
Right.
how that has quietly taken over hyper-local races.
We're talking about your local township supervisors and, your neighborhood school boards.
Yeah. To untangle this, we have an incredibly revealing stack of sources for you today. We are pulling from a recent 2026 investigative article from Lancaster Online, which breaks open a very strange local race.
And we also have an archival 2024 transcript from a PA Politics Today deep dive. That one acts as a sort of, a Rosetta Stone for the historical context of the players involved here.
Right, it gives us the blueprint. And finally, we're looking at a highly detailed 2026 Facebook thread sparked by a local observer named Scott Shepler, where citizens are basically doing open-source forensic accounting in real time.
It's wild to read through, but before we go any further, I think it is critical to establish the parameters of this discussion.
Yeah, please do.
So the sources we are examining today, they intersect with some highly charged political realities. I mean, the documents detail fights over school board culture wars, transgender inclusion policies, and unregulated gambling legislation.
Right. Heavy stuff.
Very heavy. So to be absolutely clear to you, our listener, we are not taking a stance on any of these viewpoints. We are not endorsing a left-wing or a right-wing perspective here.
No, not at all. Our role as your guides is strictly to map out the factual flow of the money, right? We just want to analyze the political strategies that these sources have documented.
Exactly. We are looking at the mechanics of the machine, not the ideology it happens to be wearing on any given day.
Well said. So let's get right into those mechanics. The Lancaster Online article paints a very specific picture of the Elizabethtown Area School District.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So you have a Republican incumbent named Danielle Lindemuth. She is running for the school board, and suddenly the district is completely blanketed with online ads and these glossy mailers attacking her.
And they're calling her what? Too radical?
Yeah, too radical, too extreme. And on the surface, you just pull that mailer out of your mailbox.
Yeah.
It looks like standard rough-and-tumble political campaigning.
Right, but the anomaly really appears when you look at Danielle Lindemuth's actual political resume.
Yeah.
I mean, she is not a fringe outside challenger.
Not at all.
She is the officially endorsed Republican candidate for this race. She was elected back in 2021 on a platform that specifically focused on fighting critical race theory and opposing transgender inclusion policies.
So she is firmly and historically established in that conservative lane.
Exactly, with the full backing of the local party apparatus.
So you have this traditional conservative incumbent, endorsed by her party, suddenly being attacked as too extreme. But here is the detail that turns this whole thing upside down.
With the funding.
Yes, the Political Action Committee, the PAC that's funding these attack ads against Lindemuth, it is not a Democratic group. It is a Republican-aligned PAC called Responsible Government for Central PA.
Which is just, it's baffling on its face.
Right. Why would a Republican PAC spend serious money to drop heavy attack ads on their own endorsed Republican candidate?
Well, I mean, the name of the PAC itself is a perfect example of that shell game we discussed earlier.
Oh, how so?
Well, Responsible Government for Central PA sounds like, a grassroots coalition of concerned Elizabethtown parents who pooled their money for some flyers.
Yeah, it sounds very mom and pop.
Right. But state filings reveal a completely different reality.
Hmm.
This is an entity run by professional political operatives who typically operate at the state level.
Wow.
Yeah, and they have entered this hyper-local arena to target a specific candidate within their own party's ranks.
And I mean, the friction this creates on the ground is just palpable. The Lancaster Online article points out that the local Elizabethtown GOP committee completely ghosted requests for comment about this.
They are paralyzed. They don't know how to handle friendly fire like that.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the hostility has gotten so intense that a bipartisan slate has actually formed.
Wait, really?
Yeah. You have two Democrats and two moderate Republicans running together specifically to avoid this mudslinging.
That kind of localized coalition is incredibly rare. I think it highlights the disruptive nature of bringing a state-level attack apparatus into a school board race.
Right. The local political ecosystem simply isn't built to absorb it.
No, not at all.
Bruce Kleindienst, he's one of the Democrats running on that bipartisan slate. He really captured the local frustration. He said he felt, quote, sadness for the voters.
Because they're just trying to live their lives.
Exactly. And instead, they're being bombarded by what he called junk and lies. He noted that at the end of the day, these are neighbors.
Right. School board races traditionally focus on property taxes, curriculum, bus routes.
Yeah, and now you have this shadowy PAC dropping tens of thousands of dollars on highly produced attack media against an incumbent.
And the scale of that spending, it requires serious infrastructure. If we trace the individuals who are legally registered as running this PAC, the events happening right now in Elizabethtown start to connect directly to a much broader financial network.
Okay, break that down for us. Who's running it?
So the state filing lists the PAC's chairman as Robert G. Branstetter. He operates a political consulting firm called RGB Politics LLC.
Okay.
And the treasurer for the PAC is a man named Douglas Rickards.
So definitely not local Elizabethtown parents organizing bake sales for a mailer.
Far from it. Both Branstetter and Rickards are deeply embedded in the Pennsylvania GOP establishment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Branstetter's consulting firm has historically secured millions of dollars in contracts to create digital media for the House Republican Campaign Committee, as well as for top-tier party candidates like Greg Rothman.
Oh, Greg Rothman. That is a massive name in this context. I mean, he famously campaigned for the PA GOP chair position.
Right, and guess who served as Rothman's campaign treasurer?
Douglas Rickards.
Exactly, Douglas Rickards.
And this is where our archival source, that 2024 transcript from the BA Politics Today deep dive, becomes so essential for understanding the blueprint they're using in 2026.
Yeah, that 2024 source is wild.
It is. 2 years ago, that source identified Douglas Rickards as the central hub of a very specific financial wheel. He wasn't just working for Rothman. He was acting as the shared treasurer for this vast, interconnected network of political committees and candidates.
I remember they spent a lot of time on a candidate named Katie Isley.
Yes, she ran for county treasurer, and the source noted something astonishing. She won a seat that required managing a 9-figure county budget despite having zero accounting experience.
Which is, I mean, it's bold.
Very bold.
Yeah.
And the financial patterns of her campaign mirrored Greg Rothman's campaign almost perfectly.
Well, because the structural similarities existed because the money was flowing through the exact same hands. Rickards was the treasurer for both.
Right.
But the 2024 source mapped Rickards to an even more significant entity. He was directly linked to a controversial group known as the Operators for Skill PAC.
Wait. The 2024 transcript explicitly stated that the Operators for Skill PAC was focused on legalizing unregulated gambling machines.
Yeah, the skill games.
Right, the kind of games you see in the corner of a gas station or a convenience store. Their entire mandate was to push gambling legislation.
And to achieve that, they donated to both Democrats and Republicans. They were completely agnostic when it came to party ideology.
So why would operatives connected to a convenience store gambling lobby care about the Elizabethtown area school district? I mean, what's the connection?
Well, the connection isn't about the school district's curriculum at all. It is about the broader strategy of building political leverage and, honestly, perfecting a system of financial obfuscation.
Okay, explain that.
The 2024 source used phrases like a financial ballet or playing financial chess to describe how this network operates.
Right, moving the pieces around.
Exactly. The goal is to move money through so many different layers, from a donor to a PAC to a secondary committee, and finally to a consulting firm, that the original source of the capital is entirely obscured from the public.
So it functions basically like a political money laundering operation.
In a sense, yeah.
The money goes into the machine, gets spun around a few times, and comes out clean as a school board attack ad.
Right. And the technical mechanism for that relies heavily on how Pennsylvania's financial disclosure laws are structured. Campaign finance law is essentially a calendar game.
A calendar game. How so?
Well, there are specific state-mandated dates when PACs are required to open their books and show the public who is funding them.
Okay.
So if a PAC is formed, receives a massive influx of cash, and buys attack ads all within the blind spot between those reporting dates.
Oh, wow. The voters have absolutely no way of knowing who is paying for the messaging until the next reporting cycle.
Exactly. By the time the donor list is made public in early 2026, the election will have already been decided.
That is, I mean, you are standing at your mailbox holding a glossy flyer that tells you a local school board member is too radical. You look for a name, you see responsible government for Central PA, and you have no legal way of finding out if that flyer was paid for by a local citizen, a state-level political consultant, or a gambling lobbyist.
The system is entirely opaque by design. The voters are asked to make decisions based on engineered messaging without being allowed to see the engineers.
And to see just how sprawling this engineering has become in 2026, we have to transition to our final source today.
The Facebook thread.
Yes, this is the Facebook thread initiated by local political observer Scott Shepler. You know, traditional local news is often stretched incredibly thin these days.
Oh, absolutely. Which leaves citizens acting as their own investigative reporters on social media.
Exactly. So Shepler posts a question that highlights a massive contradiction in this entire operation. He points out that this exact same Republican PAC-free responsible government for Central PA is currently sending out mailers actively supporting a Democrat named Dave Madsen.
Wait, supporting a Democrat in his race against a Republican?
Yes, against his opponent Shane Steele.
The dissonance there is striking. A PAC heavily tied to the Pennsylvania GOP establishment, which is currently attacking an endorsed conservative Republican in Elizabethtown, is simultaneously spending its resources to elect a Democrat in another local race.
It's wild. I mean, the natural assumption is that this has to be some kind of psyop.
Right, a dirty trick.
Yeah, one of the commenters on the thread, Jim Kavanaugh, theorized that it's a classic let's you and him fight dirty trick. The idea that Republicans are funding a Democrat just to create chaos in the Democratic primary and weaken them for the general election.
And while that kind of tactical disruption definitely does happen in politics, another commenter on the thread, Mike Iberson, brought receipts that point to a much more systemic operation.
He really brought the data.
He did. Iberson dug into the state and county finance pages and mapped the exact flow of the money.
What did he find?
He found that the Pennsylvania state GOP transferred $50,000 directly into this specific PAC.
Wait, 50 grand? Just from the state party?
Exactly. And the Dauphin County GOP transferred another $19,450, plus various other county leadership PACs kicked in thousands more.
So we are talking about nearly $75,000 of official establishment Republican Party money being dumped into a single PAC.
Yes.
Which is then turning around and supporting a Democrat. That is a massive war chest for local township and school board races.
Yeah.
What is the PACs doing with that money?
Well, Iberson's map tracks the capital straight out the other side. The PAC takes that state and county party money and writes checks totaling over $25,000 to RGB Politics.
Robert Brandstedter's firm.
Yes.
So the chairman of the PAC is paying his own consulting firm with state GOP money.
You're seeing the loop now. And furthermore, the thread tying this specific PAC back to the Dauphin County GOP is once again Douglas Rickards.
Of course it is.
The records show Rickards serves as the treasurer for both the PAC and the Dauphin County GOP. He is the signatory on both sides of the transaction.
Unbelievable.
He is moving money from one of his ledgers to another, passing it through the PAC and channeling it to the consulting firm.
The mercenary accountant is back at the center of the wheel.
Exactly.
But, I mean, the mechanical flow of the money still doesn't answer the core question for me. Why use this sophisticated state-funded machine to support Dave Madsen, a Democrat?
Well, the final piece of the puzzle comes from another perspective in that same Facebook thread. A commenter named Shayla Ellis provides the local, on-the-ground context that the financial spreadsheets just don't show.
Okay, what does she say?
She alleges that when the district maps were redrawn, Dave Madsen was actually handpicked by a powerful local figure named Michael Musser.
Interesting.
And Ellis claims that Madsen utilized paid staffers to collect his signature petitions rather than relying on grassroots volunteers. But most crucially, she notes that Madsen is being actively supported by a faction of Republicans who recently lost their own elections in Swatara Township.
Oh, So we aren't looking at a dirty trick to hurt Democrats. We're looking at a proxy war.
Exactly. This is a massive intra-party civil war playing out at the township level.
That is just, the implications of that are profound.
They really are. The state party establishment, alongside its preferred network of highly paid consultants, is utilizing a sophisticated financial apparatus to crush uncooperative or grassroots candidates within their own ranks.
So if a local Republican candidate does not align with the establishment's broader strategic goals or maybe the financial goals of these influential consulting firms, the machine just turns its weapons on them.
Yes. The establishment is perfectly willing to temporarily align with and financially back a Democrat if it means eliminating a rival faction within the Republican Party in places like Swatara Township.
It is entirely ruthless. I mean, they are using state-level GOP money to settle local township scores.
It's all about control.
When you factor in Shayla Ellis's context about Madsen's Republican supporters in Swatara, the mailers suddenly make perfect sense. The PIAC isn't an ideological organization.
No.
It is a weapon for hire.
Precisely. And the traditional narrative of local elections, where neighbors debate community issues under the banner of two distinct parties, is effectively rendered obsolete when these networks are engaged.
Yeah, the ideological labels just become irrelevant.
Totally irrelevant.
Let's synthesize everything we've uncovered for the listener.
Yeah.
The sheer volume of connections here is staggering.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. So we started with a confusing attack ad in the Elizabethtown area school district. A Republican payee was dropping heavy money to attack an endorsed conservative Republican incumbent.
Great.
We followed the names on the payee's paperwork and found Robert Branstetter and Douglas Rickards, two men with deep ties to the state GOP and, historically, to the unregulated skill game lobbying efforts we saw in 2024.
Right, and from there, we track the financial flow through the state reporting systems, revealing how the payee operates within the blind spots of disclosure laws.
We then saw that same PAC taking tens of thousands of dollars from the state and county GOP, laundering it through consulting fees, and using it to support a Democrat in Swatara Township.
All to execute a hit on a rival faction within their own party.
We basically watched the money bounce around like a pinball machine, completely ignoring traditional party lines whenever it suited the strategic interests of the consultants running the flippers.
That's exactly what's happening.
So, for the person listening to this deep dive right now, what is the core takeaway? I mean, why does understanding this complex web in Cumberland and Lancaster County matter to a voter?
It matters because it shatters a very comfortable illusion. When you go to your mailbox and pull out a political flyer, you are culturally conditioned to look for the brand, right? Democrat or Republican.
Yeah, just look for the letter next to the name.
Exactly. You assume those labels represent a coherent set of values, or at least a clear team. But the sources we explored today demonstrate that in modern local elections, those labels might just be a convenient costume. What you are actually looking at is a battle for control between hidden financial networks, lobbying interests, and high-priced consulting firms. As the 2024 archival deep dive noted, transparency is really the only viable mechanism for accountability.
And when the disclosure laws allow these groups to operate in the dark, the voter is just flying blind.
Completely blind.
You walk into the voting booth thinking you are weighing in on local property taxes or, school policy, but you are actually just a pawn in a game of financial chess played by people who won't even have to disclose their names until the polls have been closed for months.
It requires an entirely new paradigm of vigilance from the electorate. I mean, reading the mailer is no longer enough.
No.
You have to trace the passkey, find the treasurer, and map the consultants.
Which brings us right back to the sidewalk, watching the three-card Monte dealer. The game is designed to keep your eyes on the cards so you never look at the hands moving them.
You have to watch the hands.
You really do. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We've untangled an incredibly complex web today, but we want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to ponder the next time a political flyer shows up at your door.
Something to think about.
If the traditional two-party system can be so easily bypassed, hijacked, and manipulated by these hidden financial networks, who is really on the ballot when you go to vote, are you actually voting for a neighbor to represent your community, or are you just casting a vote to secure a municipal contract for a political consulting firm's balance sheet?